Right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's second ever AVC Wise live Q&A. Now, just to manage expectations, we've got an awful lot of you on today's live Q&A. So what we're going to do is just run through a few housekeeping slides and set the scene. We're going to run through five popular questions we get asked before we go into your live questions. So without further ado, let's go to the next slide. So let's do some introductions. My name is Jonathan Kempson. I'm the Retirement Education Director at AVC Wise. I joined AVC Wise in 2018. Prior to that, I was 20 years with the Prudential in their corporate pensions team. So I have a lot of knowledge around LGPS, in particular AVCs. And of course, when AVC Wise introduced the shared cost version, it was a no-brainer to come and join AVC Wise and spread the word how tax efficient these things are. I'm going to be also joined today by some of my also former Prudential colleagues, Ian Anderson and Nick Pottinger, and I think between the three of us we've got decades of experience talking about local government AVCs, and we want to answer as many of your questions as we can practically do in the next hour or so. Next slide, please. Some housekeeping information before we go any further today. Everything we're going to be telling you today is based on educational purposes only. It doesn't constitute financial advice. And of course, everything is also based on our current understanding of taxation and legislation. And of course, these things can change in the future. Tax treatment will always depend upon your own individual circumstances. And again, that could change in the future. We're just very shortly near the budget. And lastly, but by no means least, AVCs are ultimately investments. They can go up and they can go down in value, and past performance isn't a guide to the future. Let's get to some of our common questions we often get asked here at AVC Wise. And not wanting to start on a morbid note, but as Benjamin Franklin once said, there's only two certainties in life, death and taxes. So let's deal with the death angle. What will happen to my shared cost AVC if I die before retirement? And I think what I'm going to do is, Ian, I'm going to go to you firstly to answer this particular question. Ian.
Okay, thanks very much, Jonathan. This is probably the most common question asked whenever either on a webinar or if we have any individual meetings. It really is the most common question. So what happens if you unfortunately pass away before retirement? Well, the simple thing is that when you joined the local government pension scheme, you will have completed a nomination form as a beneficiary for any of your death in service benefits with your main local government pension itself. Now, whilst there is no nomination form with the AVC, in the event of your untimely death, then effectively the nomination form that you hold with a local government would also cover the AVC. So effectively what would happen is that your employer would contact the provider, whether that be Prudential, whether it be Standard Life. They would send whatever's in that AVC pot at that time to your employer, and your employer would deal with it in accordance with the details that they hold on your nomination form. So it's always important that you ensure that your nomination form is up to date. So if you've been in local government some time, you can't actually remember who's on there, it may be worthwhile just reviewing that, because you might not necessarily be as friendly with that person as maybe you were 20 years ago. Now, you can always check on your main local government portal who your beneficiary is. So that effectively is what happens. So the money does not get lost. Also worth noting that if you were making additional pension contributions, APCs, which is a form of purchasing extra pension within the local government pension scheme as well, if you were in that scenario unfortunate to pass away before retirement, that additional pension that you had purchased would actually die with you. It wouldn't actually go to your nominated beneficiary. There are death benefits associated to your local government pension, but additional pension contributions do not form part of that. So it's quite important to remember that. Obviously, none of us want to think of that happening, but life is unpredictable. So it's important that you ensure that you've effectively got that peace of mind, and also that your nomination form is up to date.
That's great. Thank you, Ian. Yes. So essentially, the money is not lost. It will be passed on. Okay, let's go to our next question of our pre-prepared ones. And the first one, the second one rather, was: are there any risks with the shared cost AVC scheme? So Nick, do you want to take this one?
Yes, thanks very much, Jonathan. So are there any risks associated with the shared cost AVC scheme? Well, the AVC is an investment-based product, and as with any investment, values can go down as well as up. But any money you put into the AVC is invested into the fund or funds of your choice, and the intention is there that the fund or funds that you invest in are there to help your pot of money grow on top of the contributions you've already made yourself. Now, whoever your AVC provider is, be it Prudential, Legal and General, Standard Life or Clerical Medical, they all have their own range of funds where you make the choice as to where to invest. And what you'll usually find is that the AVC fund providers break their fund range down into distinct risk categories, going from minimal risk at the bottom end of the scale all the way up to higher risk. And typically speaking, the further up that risk scale you go, the more potential chance there is of seeing greater growth. But of course, there is more potential chance of seeing greater loss too. But all the funds are there with the intention of increasing your AVC pot of money on top of what you've already paid in yourself. And remember, the whole point of investing your AVC contributions is to counter the effects of inflation. And to use a basic analogy here, if you had a £10 note and you put that in a drawer and locked it away for 20 years, when you reopen that drawer again in 20 years' time, that £10 note is still going to be in there, but the actual purchasing power of that £10 note would be nowhere near the amount it would have been 20 years ago, as goods and services would have all gone up in price. So the reason the money is invested is to try and keep the money that you put in the AVC up with the pace of the rate of inflation. But as I say, you can choose the level of risk you're comfortable with, and you can also change your fund choices at any time. So you're not locked into the initial fund choice you make on your AVC application. You've always got that flexibility and control as to where you decide to invest. And remember too, the presumption that you're a basic or an intermediate rate taxpayer, 20% or 21% taxpayer, the money you're putting into the AVC benefits from income tax and national insurance savings, where you're effectively benefiting from over a 46% uplift as the money goes into the arrangement. And if you're a 40 or 41% taxpayer, even more of an uplift at around 72%. So whoever your AVC provider is, they'd have to do a pretty awful job in managing your money before you're personally out of pocket due to that tremendous uplift that you receive as the money goes into the arrangement. And it is also worth pointing out too, but when we talk about investments and funds, a lot of people automatically assume that you're talking about company shares, but that isn't necessarily the case. Yes, the top end of the risk scales will usually have funds purely investing into equities, which most people know as company shares, but there'll also be other funds as well in medium risk categories downwards that are investing into perhaps gilts, which are loans to the UK government, or corporate bonds, which are loans to companies. You'll also have funds as well that are what we call multi-asset funds, where they'll be investing in all the different asset types I've mentioned there, along with company shares as well. So with multi-asset funds, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket because the diversification is already built in to the fund itself. And then in the lowest risk category, in minimal risk, you've usually got funds there that are investing into cash type assets. And if you were to look at a cash type fund over the last 10 years, and remember, past performance isn't to be taken as a guide to future performance in any case, but a cash fund over, say, the last 10 years has performed at very slightly under 0% or just slightly above 0% over that time period. So that is an option for you if you're looking to take the lowest risk possible going into a cash type fund. Just bear in mind, or be mindful, that if you do go into that type of fund, the inflationary risk where your money that you have in your AVC would be unlikely to be keeping pace of the rate of inflation.
Okay, that's great, Nick, and I said all of that without moving my lips. Don't worry, we will be switching cameras, folks, once we get off the pre-prepared slides, so you will get to see what Nick and Ian actually look like. As we just go through just a couple more slides, next question was, can I change or split the fund I invest in my shared cost AVC into? Ian, do you want to take that one, please?
Absolutely. So one of the great things about the AVC is its flexibility that it gives you in every aspect. So it has flexibility around the amount that you can change at any time, subject to your own personal financial situation. You also have that flexibility when it comes to where you invest your money. So effectively, if you're not currently already making share cost AVCs, what you're going to have is a range of funds which have different levels of risk. So the higher the risk of that investment fund, the more potential to grow your money, but obviously the more volatile that may be. Now, everybody's own attitude towards that risk will be different. So it doesn't mean to say that one size fits all. That's why you have that diversity in terms of those different risk options. Now, you can split your investments across not only different funds, but also different risk level funds. So you can have some in a medium risk, for example, some in a minimal risk, some in high risk. It's entirely down to you. You can change those at any time. So whatever you actually set up your AVC in, you have that peace of mind of knowing that if your attitude towards investment or you want to change that level of risk at any time, you can do so. You may also have the option of an online account, and I would recommend that. So if you're not currently have an online account, that is probably the best way to really keep your finger on the pulse in terms of how your investment is performing. It also alleviates you waiting for once a year to get a statement through from the provider telling you how those funds are performing. So key thing is to, if you have already got an AVC, or if you're looking to set up an AVC, I would strongly suggest that you set up an online account, because that's going to be the most effective way to manage those investments. So you have that diversity at all times, and also there are also worth noting there are lifestyle options. So a lifestyle option is aimed more at long-term growth, where the risk of that fund or the fund itself changes as you approach retirement. So effectively that change happens based on your targeted retirement age. So the nearer you get to retirement, those investment options will change. So that is obviously something which happens automatically based on your retirement age. If you're not in a lifestyle option, as I say, you have that potential to change the investment from month to month, if you like, or week to week, whichever suits you. So that flexibility gives you that peace of mind that, you know, particularly in the certain recent years has been, shall we say, somewhat different to some other years. Then you have that peace of mind that if things do move, you've got complete control over where that money is invested at all times.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Right, next question. Nick, is there a maximum amount that I can contribute into a shared cost AVC?
There is indeed, yes. So everyone here today, you all have different maximum amounts that you're allowed to contribute into a shared cost AVC. And the reason behind that is the fact that you're not allowed to reduce your monthly salary below the national minimum living wage. So ultimately, everyone's going to have different upper limits in terms of what the maximum is that you can hold, or sorry, put into an AVC on a monthly basis and remain within those limits. Now, what I would say is on our website, avcwise.co.uk, there's a very useful calculator there. If you put your salary in and the amount of hours per week that you're currently working, it will actually work out what the maximum amount is that you are allowed to contribute into a shared cost AVC on a monthly basis and remain within those national minimum living wage levels. So that's always, I would say, the first place to look in relation to that. What I would also say as well is if you were to submit an application, your application will be checked by your employer anyways. There's no danger of you going above those amounts because it'll always be double checked by your employer. But as I say, if you're looking to find out what that maximum amount is, there's a very useful calculator on our website where you can get those details. In terms of other maximums, you know, you've got the general government limits as well. So remember, everyone in the United Kingdom has to adhere to these government limits in terms of what they're putting into pensions. So firstly, you've got the annual allowance. That's the amount that the UK government allow you to put into pensions in a tax year and get tax relief on. The standard annual allowance this tax year is typically £40,000, though it could be reduced if you've previously accessed a pension or a money purchase pension in a certain way, because sometimes when you access a money purchase pension in a certain way, you can trigger what's called the money purchase annual allowance, where HMRC put further restrictions on what you're allowed to pay into money purchase pensions going forward. And currently that's £4,000 a year if you do end up triggering that money purchase annual allowance. You've also got the lifetime allowance, which is the overall amount you're allowed to hold in your pensions over the course of your lifetime before facing punitive tax. Quite a high amount, that lifetime allowance. It's currently sitting at £1,073,100. So a nice problem to have if you've got that issue, but certainly if you are getting towards the upper end of the scale there, it will be something you want to keep an eye on as well. And I suppose the other thing you could be talking about when you talk about maximums is, you know, what are you allowed to hold in an AVC and take all back as tax-free cash? A very common question we get here at AVC Wise. So again, you know, one of the unique features you've got with the local government AVC is you can potentially take the whole pot of money you've built up all back as a tax-free cash lump sum, but everyone would have a different upper limit in terms of the total amount that you're allowed to hold in an AVC and take back tax-free. And that's because your upper limit is determined by the capital value of your main local government pension scheme. And essentially, the more your main local government pension scheme is worth, the more it enables you to hold in an AVC and take all back as tax-free cash. And here at AVC Wise, we can give you additional help when trying to look at what those maximums would be in your circumstances.
Yep, that's all good stuff, and we'll talk about how we can support you further towards the end of the hour. And I think our last pre-prepared question before we get straight into your live questions for us is, does AVC Wise charge any costs for this scheme, Ian?
No, the only charges which you are going to pay in respect of the share cost AVC are the annual management charges on the investment funds to your chosen provider, which vast majority will probably be Prudential, which typically are between 0.55 and 1%. Standard Life would tend to be in excess of 1%. And similarly, if your provider is Legal and General or Clerical and Medical, for example. So they're the only charges that you will pay. They will be deducted automatically on a monthly basis. You can find details of the relevant charges in the individual fund guides for your employer, and they will be detailed accordingly. So they're the only charges that you're actually going to pay. In respect of AVC Wise's costs, they are effectively borne by your employer, because remember that as well as you saving on national insurance contributions, your employer is also saving as well. So as a result, obviously what we do on behalf of your employer is to help the education of local government members in not only finding out what a fantastic pension scheme they have. Now, any of you who have considerable membership within local government will know it is a really, really great pension scheme. But not everybody has an awareness of their pension. It's a topic which most people try to avoid because it all sounds very confusing, very complicated. Any of you who would have saw Martin Lewis' program last week will know that that's the case. So our role really is to try to simplify the mystery, shall we say, of pensions, and really focus your sort of future looking vision towards that key chapter in your life, which is retirement. So if you spent 20, 30 years working, maybe in local government, you want to make that time when your retirement arrives as fulfilling and as rewarding as possible. So as good as your local government pension scheme is, everybody will have scope to improve those benefits further. So it's really trying to sort of help you understand, not only do you have a great pension scheme in the first place, you also have this fantastic employee benefit, which can make a difference to your retirement. And that's the key thing. No matter how far, how near your retirement is away, you have a fantastic opportunity to make that as fulfilling as possible.
Great stuff. Okay, well, let's that concludes some pre-prepared slides. Now I think what we're going to do is we're going to dive, if we go back a previous slide to the blue screen, please, because this is what we're going to have now as the backdrop as we answer your questions which have come in. Now, if the technology allows, I think if we can switch the video to Nick.
Already have done, Jonathan.
Excellent, very good. So in theory, I'm not sure. There we go. You are there now, Nick. So you do exist. You're not just a voice. You're not a figment of my imagination. Or I'm a very good ventriloquist. Let's actually now bring in one of our other colleagues, Barry, who's actually looking at the Q&A feed for us. Barry, do you want to serve up our first question for Nick?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. We've had some really good questions through, so we'll get straight into these. The first question, Nick, is how is the 25% tax-free lump sum calculated? Can you break it down step by step?
Yeah, good question. So it's one of the most popular questions we get here at AVC Wise. And yes, I can break it down. So essentially, to work out the maximum amount you can hold in an AVC and take back tax-free, you would first of all need to find out what your pension, your projected pension benefits are going to be within your main local government pension scheme. And you would do that by either getting a statement. You should be getting a statement every year from your main local government pension scheme, or you could just simply log into your main local government pension website, where there's various projector tools there. Now, what you're looking for is effectively the first figure you would need to find out is the amount that you're projected to receive in retirement as an annual pension amount from your local government pension scheme. Now, as I say, you'll get that off a statement or on the online website for your main scheme. And what you always do with that annual pension figure is you times it by a factor of 20. Okay, any defined benefit pension, a local government pension scheme, they always instruct it to be multiplied by a factor of 20 to work out the true value of a defined benefit pension scheme. So you can take your first year's annual pension income that you're expecting from the main scheme, times it by 20. And what you would then need to do is, if you've got any membership in the local government pension scheme up until the 31st of March 2008, if you're in England and Wales, or the 31st of March 2009, if you're in Scotland or Northern Ireland, you would have built up some form of automatic entitlement to a tax-free cash lump sum. Okay, it's only in that section, the 80th section, that you'd have built up that automatic entitlement, but that's going to need to be factored into the calculation. Now, for those of you that haven't got any membership in that 80th section, you don't need to worry about what I'm saying here, but if you have got that automatic lump sum, you're going to need to add that on top of the 20 times the annual pension figure. All right, and what you would then have is the value of your main local government pension scheme as far as HMRC are concerned, the capital value of your main local government pension, 20 times that first year's annual pension amount, plus the automatic tax-free cash lump sum added on top if you're due one. What you then need to do, that total figure you've got there, is add on the amount you think you might have in your AVC pot at the point of retirement. And once you've done that, the total figure you've got is the total value of your LGPS benefits. It's the value of your main local government pension scheme and the value of the AVC pot combined. Now, HMRC allows you to take 25% of that total figure back as tax-free cash. So with that total figure you've got there, you just divide it by 4 to give you that 25% figure. And as long as your AVC pot and as long as your automatic tax-free cash lump sum from the main scheme fits within that 25% figure, you can take the whole AVC pot all back tax-free. Okay, so that's how it's worked out. And one of the ways you could work out the optimum amount that you could hold in an AVC and take back tax-free is, again, you would take your annual pension figure that you're projected to receive in retirement at the point of retirement, times it by a factor of 20. What you would then do is divide that figure by 3. And that would give you the optimum amount that you could hold in an AVC and take all back as tax-free cash. Anything above that figure, you'd be going into the realms of having money in an AVC that you couldn't take back tax-free. And by the way, you would still need to add in or accommodate the fact that you've got automatic tax-free cash eligible if you're in the 80th final salary section of local government scheme with that calculation. But hopefully, that's a lot of, I know it's a lot of information to take in there, but we can help you here at AVC Wise with those types of calculations. We just need some details of your main pension statement to be able to give you that kind of upper limit estimate.
Yeah, and we'll talk about how we can offer that help on a one-to-one basis towards the end. So yeah, thanks for that, Nick. I think Barry, you're going to serve up another question for Nick.
Next question, Nick. I've been told that you should stop paying AVCs at least 3 months before your retirement date, as it could affect your final salary. Is this true?
That is incorrect. Okay, so when you pay into a shared cost AVC, you're not damaging any of the benefits you're entitled to from your main local government pension in any way, shape or form. Your local government pension scheme use what's called your notional salary to calculate your main scheme benefits. And your notional salary is essentially your annual salary before any salary sacrifice is made. So your local government pension scheme are always using your full salary to calculate those benefits in your main local government pension. So you could stop it 3 months before, but we would say it's not going to have any detrimental effect to your main local government pension if you did or didn't. What you might be referring to there is some people do opt to stop their contributions a month or 2 before retiring, because it could result in a delay in you getting your retirement benefits. Because what happens is, if you made a contribution from your final month's pay slip, for example, now your payroll then need to deduct that money to send across to Prudential, Standard Life, Legal and General, Clerical, Medical, whoever your AVC provider happens to be, and they need to wait. So the AVC provider needs to wait to receive that money and put that into your AVC pot before they can then release that AVC pot back to your local government pension scheme. So some people do prefer to kind of stop their contributions a month or 2 before retirement for that very reason, to perhaps avoid a delay in taking their retirement benefits.
Okay. Right, shall we, if the technology allows, I think Ian, it's your turn to field a couple of questions. So there we go. There we are, Ian in the camera there. Barry, what questions have we got for Ian?
Yep, so next question. I will be retiring at the end of June and will take my pension then. Is it worth me investing higher amounts into my AVC for these last few months?
Okay. So obviously the only way that you can pay into the AVC is through your salary. You have no other way to do so. And as Nick would have said just now, that in terms of what the maximum you could pay in would obviously depend on your own individual salary and scope. Now, also depending on what you want to do, if you want to take as much tax-free cash as you can, again, using the calculation which Nick went through there, then potentially you could maximize as best you can in the remaining months before retirement. It's not uncommon that people might do that. If you sort of think of it in the sense that you have that scope to whatever you put in between now and retirement to take it all back tax-free, that is what most people want to do. Now, depending on what your scope is, you can also have a look at the calculator on the website, which will tell you the maximum you could potentially pay in for your salary. Bear in mind also annual allowance limits, etc. But obviously, once we come into April, we are in a new tax year, and obviously that £40,000 annual allowance starts all over again. Now, what I would probably suggest is to have a look on the website just to see what your potential maximum is. If you have other resources, so for example, if maybe you've got money sitting in a bank account or build a society which isn't doing anything for you, then that may enable you to put potentially a higher amount between now and retirement. So first of all, as I say, I would have a look at what scope you've got, what potential you have to take it all back tax-free, and if you want to try and maximize or maybe reach your potential before you retire, then obviously you've got potentially 3 or 4 opportunities to do so. And also remember, obviously, here we are, the last day of February. February has just flown by. How did that happen? So any change would take effect from your March pay, but time is of the essence if you want to maximize before your retirement.
Okay, thanks for that, Ian. And right, Barry, what's next for Ian?
Yep, next question, Ian. I am retiring next year. Does the pension team automatically send me the lump sum I've accumulated through my AVC?
Okay, so what would happen is that your employer would notify the provider, whether that be Prudential, whether that would be Standard Life, of your intention to retire, and they would then send the AVC monies directly to you. So it should happen as an automatic process. There's no harm in actually just double checking maybe 6 weeks or so before you're due to retire, just to make sure that is all in hand, just so there's no potential delay to actually receiving those AVC monies. But yes, it should be an automatic process that your employer would instigate.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ian. I think we'll switch back to Nick. And Nick, if you want to take the next question.
Absolutely.
Okay, Nick. So next question, what happens to the AVC if I leave the council? Can I continue to make payments in?
Okay, so with the local government AVC, the shared cost AVC, the stipulation is you have to be making contributions into your main local government pension in order to make contributions into the shared cost AVC. So of course, if you're to leave your employer, you would no longer be making contributions into your main local government pension scheme at that point, and therefore you wouldn't be able to make any further contributions into the shared cost local government AVC. Now, what would happen in that scenario is any money you've already got in the shared cost AVC would remain with your AVC provider, invested in the fund or funds of your choice. So hopefully that pot of money would still be growing for you on top of what you've already got in there. But ultimately, you wouldn't be able to add any further money into the shared cost AVC because, as I say, the stipulation is you have to be making contributions into your main local government scheme in order to make those contributions into the shared cost AVC.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Next question, what where I've paid AVCs, is the value locked until the normal retirement age, or can they be accessed if I retire early?
Okay, well, remember what the AVC is simply just a pot of money. Okay, and that pot of money is going to have a value to it. One, depending on how much you've paid in, and secondly, how the fund or funds that you've invested in have performed over that period. Now, with the AVC, it's a pension arrangement, and therefore you've got the usual ties in terms of when you're allowed to access those types of arrangements. You've got to be over the minimum retirement age, which is currently age 55. But in effect, whatever that age is, your normal pension age in your main local government scheme, you don't necessarily have to access your AVC at that point. You can access your local government pension benefits and the AVC benefits as long as you're over that minimum retirement age, which, as I say, is currently age 55. Now, the value isn't locked in as such, because any money you put into the AVC, that money is invested into the fund or funds of your choice. And as I mentioned earlier, the funds you invest in are all there with the intention to increase your AVC pot of money on top of what you've already paid in yourself. As I mentioned though earlier, there's no guarantee of that happening, because funds can go down as well as up. But never forget, you've always got that total flexibility in terms of your fund choices. You're always in total control of where you're deciding to invest, and you've got all those different risk categories where you can match funds with whatever your attitude to risk is. But ultimately, the fund will be going up and down depending on how the funds perform. And whenever you come to access that AVC pot of money, be it at age 55 or age 68, 65, whatever it is, that pot of money, whatever the value is at that point, will then be accessible, and you can take the AVC back in various different ways.
Okay, right, shall we switch back to you, Ian? And hopefully that technology allows us to do that. There we go. Right, Barry, what questions have we got for Ian?
Okay, and so somebody has asked, can someone please help me understand, is it better to repay my mortgage or invest into an AVC?
Wish I could answer that question for you, but if effectively that is financial advice. So look, two key financial things in your lifetime: mortgage and pension. So if you wanted to actually get somebody to tell you what is the best option, as I say, that would effectively be financial advice. Now, obviously, you've got flexibility around the AVC at any time. You may, depending on what mortgage you have, you might have a mortgage where you're also able to make overpayments to it as well. But ultimately, the decision is effectively yours. Now, really, in terms of how long you've got left on your mortgage, what age you're potentially looking at retiring at, they are both factors in probably helping you determine which option is best for your own personal circumstances. But as I say, it would be financial advice. Now, if you did want financial advice, then there is a website called unbiased.co.uk, which, if you tap your postcode in, will come up with financial advisors close by to you. But obviously, bear in mind, they will charge you for any advice. So I would probably have a look at not only the terms of your mortgage, but also give serious consideration in terms of maybe how long it is before you retire, and maybe where you want to be in 5 years' time, or or depending on your age, etc., and what options you have or able to do given that age.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, Ian, we've got the backdrop where interest rates are obviously going up, and it depends whether, I guess, you're on a fixed rate. Are you about to come off a fixed rate? What is that interest rate you're paying? So historically, it was quite cheap to service mortgage debt, and now that might not be the case, particularly ending up on the standard variable rate. And the whole point is, if you do a mortgage overpayment, that's after you've paid income tax and national insurance. It's taxed net income, which you're then doing to overpay that, versus if I put the money into an AVC, that's before I'm effectively getting a double tax break there. So it very much depends upon what the outcome is going to be. It's an individual calculation, really. But yeah, we do have some people, their attitude is, well, if my strategy is to take my AVC all out as tax-free cash, what I'm going to do is accept that I'm going to pay more interest, but actually if I have it all back, potentially all as tax-free cash, I can clear off my mortgage at retirement using my AVC. Now, that would have been a clearer judgment perhaps in the days of low interest rates. It's more of a finer judgment call now with interest rates going up. But essentially, that's what you've got to weigh up. Something which I overpay after I pay tax or NI, or if I want to be even more tax efficient, but accept I'll pay more mortgage interest, that's the reality of the decision you've got. But you would need to have individual calculations done to try and weigh up the pros and cons. There's nothing to say you don't do a bit of both. Who knows what the right answer is? I guess if we knew what interest rates were going to be longer term, we might be able to make some longer assumptions on that. And another question for Ian, please.
Yeah, Ian, so quite a popular question here is, can we get a copy of this Q&A session?
Absolutely. I think that will be available. I think normally on Microsoft Teams, you can also go in after the event and actually view a recording of the webinar as well. So if you really find that there's nothing on Netflix at all, or you're struggling, find something to do of an evening, maybe get the whole family round and rewatch today's webinar.
Very good, very good. Right, shall we switch back to Nick then and have some more questions for Nick?
Yep, Nick. So our two most popular questions we have at the moment. Now, I think we have already touched on one of these, but it's probably important to cover this off.
Yep.
So Deb has asked, I only have a few years before retirement. I've not previously had AVCs. Is it wise to start with high deposits to build up the AVC quickly? And that's then followed up by Dave asking, can you make lump sum payments or must it be deducted from salary?
Okay, well, let's just start with that the question you just asked there, Barry. In terms of lump sum payments, it's a very common question we get, and often when people talk about lump sums, they're often referring to the fact, can I put money in that I've got in my bank account, for example, and transfer that into the shared cost AVC? Well, the answer to that is unfortunately not. No. Any money you pay into the shared cost AVC always has to come directly from your salary. And that's why it's so important to remember that, because ultimately every payday that goes past is a lost opportunity to make a contribution into the shared cost AVC. Now, let's say you did have an amount in your savings account or a cash ISA that perhaps isn't doing too much for you in terms of savings potential at the moment, and you wanted to ideally get that money into a shared cost AVC. Well, as I say, you can't do it directly, but what you could do is you could pay an increased proportion of your salary into the AVC. So everyone's got their maximum amounts that you're allowed to pay in per month, as I mentioned earlier, but ultimately you could pay a greater proportion of your salary into an AVC for a period of time. And what you could effectively do is, live off those savings that you've got in your bank account that aren't doing much for you at this moment in time. So, you can indirectly, you could deem it as being indirect kind of transfer into the AVC, but it's not a direct one. You're effectively just living off your savings rather, whilst paying a greater proportion of your salary into the AVC. But it does allow you to get that money in and obviously benefit from the huge uplifts that you benefit from as the money goes into the arrangement. And I think the other question is, it was around 3 years to go before retirement. Would you benefit from paying increased amounts in? Well, all I'd say there is we do find, a great percentage of people that we speak to often start paying into an AVC. They might have left it a bit late, but there's no such thing as leaving it too late with the shared cost AVC, because ultimately any money you're putting into it, you're getting those tremendous tax and national insurance savings. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a basic rate taxpayer there or thereabouts, you're getting over a 46% uplift as the money goes into the arrangement, down to the tax and the national insurance savings you're getting as the money goes in, and even more if you're a 40% taxpayer, in the region of around 72%. So if you've only got a number of months or years to go before retirement, you could be making all those savings as the money goes into the plan. And then you haven't got long to wait before you can potentially just take all of that back as a tax-free cash lump sum. So what I would say is have a look on our website, because again, we've got another useful calculator there where if you were to put in the amount you're perhaps looking to contribute into an AVC over the period of time, what it will do is it will first of all say, well, this is what we estimate it's going to be costing you from your take-home pay. So you see your monthly savings there straight away, but also it will also try and generate an estimate as to what the amount would be in your AVC pot at the point of retirement. And you might be pleasantly surprised as to what kind of pot of money you can build up even over a short period of time in the run up to your retirement.
And I think just to add to that, Nick, I mean, the AVC Wise calculator, it's on our knowledge hub. So if you go onto avcwise.co.uk, go on the knowledge hub, you'll see the calculator. That does assume a net growth of 3%. Now, you know, it could well be, if you're close to retirement, you may well wish to play it more cautiously in terms of your fund choices. So it wouldn't be uncommon that someone may consider going into something like a cash fund, because your primary win will be the tax and NI saving, and you want relative stability as you get that close to retirement. So yeah, you're effectively going to yield on cash of outrageous returns. You haven't got long to go if you're 3 years away from retirement, so you were never going to get huge compounded potential investment returns, but the far bigger prize was the tax and national insurance savings. So yeah, it's not uncommon close to retirement, larger contributions, and generally speaking tend to be more cautious in terms of which waters you fish in at that life stage. Right, I don't know whether that classed as 2 questions for you. It probably did, Nick, there. So should we switch back to Ian and Barry? Some more questions, please, for Ian.
Yep. So next question, Ian. How can I track the performance of my AVCs?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, what I would suggest is to set up an online account with the provider. So if it's Prudential, you will be able to set up an online account through MyPru. If your provider is Standard Life, for example, I have a pension with Standard Life. I know that they have an app that you can actually track things on your phone. It's a really fantastic app. So that would be the either way, either set up an online account if it's Prudential. I'm not too sure, in totally honest, with some of the smaller providers, Legal and General and Clerical and Medical, but I'm sure you'll be able to set up online accounts with them. But certainly that is the best way, because as I said, the providers will issue a statement, a paper statement to you once a year, but as you would have seen in recent times, lots of things can happen very quickly in the world. So the key thing is to either, if you've not got an AVC, once you do set the AVC up, then register for an online account. If you are already making AVC contributions, I think it's imperative that you get an online account if you haven't really, already done so, because that is going to give you effectively the information on the performance of your investments at a sort of a few clicks away from a laptop or even on your smartphone. So that's the best way really to keep track of how things are doing.
Okay, great. And another one for Ian, please.
Yep. So next question, Ian. So say I decide to take my AVC at the same time as my local government pension. Does that get paid directly from my employer, or do I have to use that pot of money, so the combined pension savings and AVC pot, to buy a product from a third party, such as an annuity?
Okay. So the AVC, any cash lump sum you get from your employer will effectively be sent to you as a cash lump sum. Now, what you do with that cash lump sum is entirely down to you. So if you did want to use that cash lump sum to provide more income in retirement by way of an annuity, for example, or maybe even by purchasing additional pension from the local government pension scheme itself, that is entirely fine. You could actually do a combination of those. It's, you know, it's really your choice. But obviously you've got this unique option whereby you can potentially take it all back tax-free and do what you like with it. Now, if you wanted some guidance around those options, so not advice, but guidance, and you're over 50, then you can contact Pension Wise, which is a government service, given guidance around what options you have at retirement. Now, we're not going to be necessarily experts on the local government pension scheme, but they will be able to talk you through your options, and you can find their details, as I said, at the moneyhelper.org website. That consultation with Pension Wise is not going to cost you anything at all. So have a think about, you know, what ultimately do you want to do in retirement. Most people want to take as much tax-free cash as they can. Some people, depending on, you know, what lifestyle they have, may use that to fund their lifestyle. Other people might just want that security of having that additional income every month. So you could do a combination of things, but ultimately the choice is yours. But as I said, if you want some guidance around those options, Pension Wise would probably be a starting point, because as I say, that's going to be completely free of charge to you.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Ian. Right, back to you then, Nick. Some more questions, please.
Yep. So Nick, the most popular question here at the moment, quite a broad question. Why should I consider doing AVCs? Don't quite understand what it actually is.
Okay, well, to give you a summary of the benefits of the shared cost AVC. Firstly, the main benefit you've got is as the money goes into the AVC arrangement, right? Because it's working on a shared cost salary sacrifice basis. So what that ultimately means, you could be paying an amount in from your salary and you'll be getting tax and national insurance savings on that money. And to use an example here, if you're a basic rate taxpayer, paying £100 into an AVC effectively should only be costing you around kind of £68.12 from your take-home pay to pay that amount in. And as I say, that actually is in terms of an uplift there. When you're comparing that kind of uplift to a savings account or a cash ISA, you're getting an uplift of over 46%. Now, I know interest rates have been going up over the last year or so, but certainly nowhere near to the degree that you're getting that uplift of the shared cost AVC. So as I say, that is the main benefit you've got of paying money into this arrangement. You're making those tremendous tax and national insurance savings as the money goes into the plan. And then, of course, the other unique benefit you've got with the shared cost AVC, and by the way, this is unique to the local government AVC. All the other public sector AVC arrangements do not allow this, but the local government AVC just simply allows you to take that whole pot of money you've built up within the AVC all back as a tax-free cash lump sum, as long as you take your AVC at the same time as you take your main local government pension, and as long as it's within certain limits. So you're getting all those tax and national insurance savings as the money goes into the plan, and then on the way out, you're simply being able to take that all back as a tax-free cash lump sum. And if you can think of any other arrangement in the marketplace that's offering that kind of deal, like the shared cost AVC is, please do let me know, because I'd be very interested in that myself.
Okay, and another one for Nick.
Yeah, another one, Nick, just worth clarifying. I know it was mentioned at the start, but there's a lot of likes on this question. So somebody's asking, can I just double check? If you die before you retire, did you say any extra money that you put in this is then lost?
Okay, well, no. In terms of the pot of money, you're not, that pot of money is not lost. Ultimately, when you joined your main local government pension scheme, you'd have completed an expression of wish form within the scheme in relation to those main scheme benefits. And whoever you've nominated on that form would be the full recipient of your AVC pot of money in its entirety, typically as a tax-free cash lump sum in the unfortunate events if you were to die before accessing your AVC. So just to reiterate, your AVC pot of money is not lost if you die before you access it. That whole pot of money you've built up within the AVC is payable to the person or persons you've already nominated on your expression of wish form within your main local government pension scheme.
And of course, additionally, you get 3 times death in service as well. So there'd be effectively, 2 lump sums in effect. So it's really important, as Ian was touching on earlier, you've got an up-to-date nomination form completed if your personal situation's changed. Talk to your pension fund about that, or go onto your online portal if you need to update your expression of wish form. Right, shall we go back to you, Ian, and let's have some more questions.
Okay, next question, Ian. How are AVCs taken into account for tax purposes? Could I technically lower my tax band if I pay in enough to the AVCs, or does your tax band stay the same post-contribution?
Okay, so what goes into your local government pension itself is obviously a percentage of your salary. The amount of income tax you pay obviously will depend on your salary as well. So they're 2 separate things. Now, paying into any pension such as an AVC will reduce your taxable pay, as do your contributions which go into your main scheme as well. So, for example, if you were into the higher rate taxpayers, let's say for England and Wales 40%, and let's say that you had £3,000 liability at the 40%, then if you started paying AVC contributions, that would then reduce that 40% liability potentially to the degree where you then become a basic rate taxpayer. So, for example, if you paid £3,000 at 40% and you started an AVC contribution of £500 a month, over a full year, that would equate to £6,000 that you would have paid into an AVC. The first £3,000, so the first 6 months contributions of £500 would attract the tax relief at the higher rate of 40% and 2% national insurance. After that, it would then attract tax relief at the basic rate of 20% and 12% national insurance. So any money that you pay into pensions will reduce that tax liability if you're in that situation. If you're not quite sure in terms of how much higher rate tax you may be paying, again, that's something which we can always try and help you ascertain, but it's worth noting that obviously you've got your standard personal allowance of 12,570, so the amount everybody's allowed to earn before they start paying tax, and also for contributions which are going into your main local government pension scheme as well, are also reducing that taxable pay. But if you're not sure in terms of, you might have some higher rate tax liability, as I say, we can always have a look at that and try and ascertain that for you.
Yeah, I think it's a really key point. If you are in that higher tax band, part of your own personal planning is to manage that liability and effectively calculate to what extent am I truly into the 40% band. If by paying things like shared cost AVCs, I can reduce my taxable liability at source, and you'll get all the relevant tax relief at source and national insurance relief at source, that's got to be a good thing to do. And again, that's more of perhaps a one-to-one discussion with us at AVC Wise, but that's a very popular thing to do. Right, should we have another question? And I'm conscious of time, so let's have another one, and then we might have to start wrapping things up, I'm afraid.
Yep, so we can kind of box off two in one go
Right.
here, Ian. So we've got, are you able to pay additional into your local authority pension? If so, what would be the added benefit of doing an AVC over local authority pension? And then we've also had another question around the advantages of the AVC versus APCs.
Okay, so AVCs, additional voluntary contributions, helping you save in an extremely tax efficient way, building up a pot of money as a cash lump sum that you can potentially take back all tax-free and do what you like with that money. Either use it to then ultimately give yourself further income in retirement, or effectively go around the world, whatever you want to do with that money. APCs, additional pension contributions, are buying you more main scheme local government pension. So in England and Wales, you can purchase a maximum of £7,352 of annual pension. In Scotland, I believe that to be £7,050 annual pension. So effectively, what you are doing is buying more main scheme pension on top of what you would normally receive at retirement. Now, there is a calculator on your local government pension scheme website which will give you an indication of the cost of that. You do have two ways of purchasing that additional pension. You can either purchase it by way of a lump sum, any tax relief you then have to claim back from HMRC, or you can make the repayment for the purchase of an additional pension amount through your salary each month, and any tax relief will then automatically be done by your payroll. Now, it is worth noting, as I mentioned earlier, around that the question of taxes and death. Obviously, on the death side, as I say, if you unfortunately pass away before your retirement in AVCs, but money goes to your beneficiary. If you die paying APCs, additional pension contributions, that money is lost. Okay, so just to clarify that distinction. In terms of the cost of APCs, it will depend on a number of factors. It will depend on your age, your sex, and how long you've got to retire between now and retirement. So effectively, the shorter the period between now and retirement, generally the higher those repayments will be. You can do both, that's not a problem. But ultimately, you would need to live for around 14, 15 years into retirement to recoup the outlay of additional pension contributions. So there doesn't tend to be a huge uptake of them. The other thing also to bear in mind is you don't have the flexibility that you would have with the AVC. So with the APC, if for any reason you weren't able to meet that payment 1 month, effectively the contract would be broken. You would have just accrued what you built up to about a point, and if you wanted to start the whole process again, you could do so. With the AVCs, if your washing machine suddenly packed up one weekend, you need to go down to Currys Worth to get a new one, you can reduce your contributions to as little as £2 a month, go and get your washing machine and pick them up the following month. So it's important to understand that the distinctions between the two. Some people like that knowledge of knowing they're going to have a guaranteed income month on month basis in retirement. Others want that sort of flexibility and have that choice in terms of what a tax-free lump sum would give them.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Ian. I know we've got Lots and lots of questions still, and I'm afraid we are running out of time. So what I want to do now is actually, if we can just move the slides on. I don't know whether you're able to switch the camera back to me, guys. But what we want to do is, Nick, you can actually move the slides on, is talking about how we can help you after today. And if this is something which has whetted your appetite, you know deep down you have a need to do some additional saving for your retirement, and you've still got one or two unanswered questions. What better way to do that than actually have a one-to-one with Nick or Ian or possibly Barry, and we've got another member of our team as well. We do these through Microsoft Teams meetings, typically 20 minutes long. And what we can do there is all sorts of things, whether it's looking at your 40% liability, whether it's working out your maximum AVC as tax-free cash, which Nick was touching on earlier. We're here very much to give you a helping hand. Now, if you are booking one of those one-to-ones with us, you do need to come prepped for that meeting, because 20 minutes flies by. So what you need in the white box there, your latest LGPS pension statement with a projection to your desired retirement age, please, because the standard one will just go to your normal pension age. If you've got the online account, which Ian was touching on earlier, an up-to-date valuation if you're already doing AVCs, what is the size of the pot at this point in time, and clearly an up-to-date pay slip so we can understand where your salary is. What is your tax coding? Is it a standard tax coding? Is it something else? And then we can have a robust discussion about what you're doing, how you're planning, how efficient you're being. We're not there to individually advise you, but we want to put you in an informed position to move forward with these shared cost AVCs. So how do you go about booking one of those then? Well, the link is actually on the screen there, avcwise.co.uk/meeting. What that does is you click on that, or type that into your browser rather, then you can directly go into Ian and company's diaries and their availability, and it's easy as that to book that meeting. But please come prepped with the things we require to have an effective meeting, and think about what is reasonably affordable in your situation as well, and that will help shape our discussion and hopefully answer any remaining questions you've got. Last slide then. Other ways to contact us. Maybe you're not in a position to move forward with your application just at this point in time, but you've still got some unanswered questions. How can I reach out to AVC Wise? Well, there's various avenues you can go down. There's email, there's a live chat. We've got a telephone help desk as well, office hours. We talked about the AVC Wise calculator. That's on our Knowledge Hub. The details are on there. And then just make sure you're selecting England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, so we've got the right income tax sitting behind the calculator for you then. FAQs, that's a great source of answering questions as well. And we've also put some links to your main local government pension scheme, whether it's England and Wales, NILGOS in Northern Ireland, and obviously our Scottish colleagues as well. Follow us on social media as well, Facebook or Twitter. We're increasingly active in those channels as well. It only remains for me to say thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Lots and lots of questions, and please pick our brains further. I think given the sheer number of people we've had on this webinar today, shows us that we'd like to do more of these. So if that's something you've liked, please feel free in this chat to leave some feedback for us. And we very much look forward to seeing you in the future. What we're all about, as Ian said here at AVC Wise, is educating you to be more efficient for your future and build extra funds of money. And if you've got more money for your retirement, you've got a greater sense of control, and we truly believe that will make you a happier and more fulfilled retirement. Once again, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and good afternoon.